Welcome to this episode of 365 Sunsets. In this episode of the show, we're with my friend, the world-renowned craft brewer, the creative force behind a critically acclaimed artistic collective, and an ever-reclusive personality, Jens Halmquist. Jens, great to see you, and thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Dave, it's great to be here. I'm actually a big fan of 365. I've listened a handful of times. I try to catch it when I can.
Well, thanks. Thanks a lot. So let's get right down to it. You know, the interviewee type stuff. You are a notoriously media-shy person. Why in the world would you want to sit down and come on this podcast? It really kind of cracks me up. The idea that I've snuck around numerous places with you on many occasions, and you've remarked to me, "Oh, there might be photographers over there," or, "Hey, let's avoid that journalist who's approaching us." And yet, here we are, talking on this show.
Yeah, well, a number of rumors are circulating.
Yeah, and they have been for a long time.
Yeah, for quite a while. I guess so. It just seems that for whatever reason...
The paparazzi? The trolling web journalists?
Yeah, it just seems that there are these stories, kind of myths, actually, if you will, and they seem to have gotten out of control, like spun out of control.
Myths? Did you say myths?
Yeah, myths. I'd definitely call them myths.
As if they are not true?
Yes, they're not true.
Well, there certainly are a lot of rumors, myths, if you will, out there. Like the one you're a former terrorist.
Hey, you know me. We've actually known each other, Dave, for a while, 10 years or more, I'd say, and you know I'm not a terrorist. I have no idea how that got started, right?
Of course not. Jens Halmquist, you're not a terrorist.
But that actually doesn't stop all these journalists and paparazzi from reporting these stories over and over again.
I understand that. Everybody who does know you understands that. How many people would that actually be, people who know you and understand that?
A handful. At most, I'd say a handful.
We the handful. We understand that. But it strains the minds of everybody else when you take the name of your brewery, your self-named brewery, Halmquist Family Ales, and rename it Al-Qaeda No. 7.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit, I did not anticipate the reaction that name change would receive. If you think back, Halmquist Family Ales, Al-Qaeda No. 7, like what? Like how did we make that jump? In the end, it was not all about the beer, however, especially now. In fact, we just rebranded from Al-Qaeda No. 7 to AQ No. 7. But, you know, we could talk about the music. We could talk about the art of AQ No. 7, of the collective.
Sure. Let's talk about the music. It's been a fun thing for us this year, hearing music coming out of your AQ No. 7 collective pop-ups.
Yeah. Music has been a key component of our work, of everyone's work life at AQ No. 7 at the collective. It's actually been a really important aspect of how we interact with the people who attend as well.
So while we're on the subject, let's talk about music curation for the collective.
Sure. I view us all as artists. Everyone at AQ No. 7 collective would likely consider themselves artists. To more or less, they're musicians beyond being artists. Everybody plays one or more instruments, it seems. So there's a continuous flow of covers, of originals. It just is. It's the undercurrent that runs through all of us.
And you have a house or a collective DJ as well.
Well, first and foremost, she's actually, we refer to her as our house superhero. literally, Mixana is a superhero. I know it sounds odd, but she's really from the realms of Marvel or DC. She's had a very public relationship and breakup with some of those other hero dudes, and she literally showed up at one of our pop-ups in I think 2016, and she's been part of the collective ever since. She kind of toggles between our normal world in AQ#7 and the world of the superheroes.
So help out our listeners here. Mixana she's a superhero. She's a superhero of what?
Yeah. It's she really is the superhero of the mixtape. I didn't think that was a thing, but as it turns out, it's a huge thing. And we've all kind of stumbled into this, but if you've ever had a crisis and need to set the proper mood with music, which happens all the time, she really is and has been the solution to that problem.
So give me an example.
Well, she's actually called into like wedding receptions and dinner parties and social situations like that where, and I'm sure, Dave, you've been in situations like this. You've been at a wedding and it just sucks. Nobody is setting the mood with the music. It's just not making the event what it could be. And
many times.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's when people really get
What do you do? What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, you call her, right? Literally, it's really a cry for help to save those circumstances. So that's really where she's been hanging around, but she's doing that as well.
So that means great music for your workplace, and then I guess also for your pop-up events that you hold.
Yeah, I mean she's around a lot during these pop-up events, and the music really is, as I said, a part of that for the people that show up, and there's guest performers that show up as well. All of the artists on the year-end set list Mixana prepared for this show appeared live at one or more of the pop-ups in the past year. So she knows just everybody in the music industry. She's got just a lot of access to people, and who's going to refuse that? An invitation for a superhero to play a live set. So, when the bands aren't playing live, she sets a mood at work or at our shows. We like to think of having a house DJ allows us to focus on other things that each of us does best.
Like for you, brewing beer.
Well, most of our guests do not show up to hear me play guitar, so or sing for that matter. So yeah, beer's my thing.
They come to get a taste of your beers, which are only available in extremely limited quantities at your pop-ups. Which brings us perhaps to the topic of your beer making. Why the switch to the name Al-Qaeda#7?
Yeah, when I got started in this, it's now AQ#7, by the way, but it is true. I may be the most elusive brewer in the world. I didn't actually start off that way, but I found my way to that, and frankly, I think of my beer as the most sought after in the world.
And somehow that translates to the name AQ#7.
Yeah, I think it does on multiple levels.
Please explain.
Well, by 2011, it was well documented that I had kind of done everything I thought I could do with our Halmquist family ales. We'd pretty much won the awards and collected the gold medals. People were flocking to the brewery and the family farm in Minnesota. And in my research for the brewery, I'd been experimenting with different varietals of hops around the world, and I was really kind of finding that localized varieties had, in specific microclimates, had really a kind of a subtle but powerful effect on what we could produce as craft brewers.
And so you were becoming a kind of worldwide ambassador of hops, as it were.
Yes, that was true, but what ended up happening is it kind of evolved to growing hops around the world. So we got into the production side of the business as well in very small quantities. I was bringing varieties home to the ales that we were growing around the world, and I was brewing with other brewers all over.
And then catastrophe almost struck.
Right. Yeah. This is before the collective. Just me and a dozen or so of our Halmquist family folks were growing a test patch of hops in. Actually, it was in kind of a tribal area of Pakistan.
In Pakistan? Fact is indeed stranger than fiction.
Yeah. It was kind of a winding road that led us to that very, very specific little microclimate that some of our team had figured out, and we were on our way there. And as it turns out, some U.S. intelligence picked up on this, essentially a little camp that we had set up with vehicles and some temp housing, and the archetype of brewers. It's like a bunch of guys in ragged clothes and beards.
And U.S. intelligence thought that you were what?
Yeah, it's weird to think of, but I learned this after the fact, of course, but the intelligence community had identified me as Al-Qaeda number 7. I had somehow ended up on a list, accidental, of course, and my team had become this, identified entourage around me.
And Al-Qaeda number 7, that being the most elusive member of the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization?
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it. It's like I wasn't doing it. It seemed like an anomaly. Even still, it seems odd. What I learned later was that the CIA actually identifies a number to all the Al-Qaeda leadership, and it's kind of like a most wanted list. And everyone, I think, on the top 10 had been taken out, including Osama bin Laden. No matter, and it seemed, as it turned out, the harder they tried, they couldn't find me.
They couldn't find Al-Qaeda number 7.
Correct. Right. They had somehow attached that to me. And
or you. They couldn't find you.
Right. Well, it was Al-Qaeda number 7.
Not you.
Correct. I was really not I was identified as that person, but not officially. So it wasn't as if they had my name connected to it. So they had a name, they had a vague description. I looked like every other craft brewer in the world.
And like every other member of Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
So now the CIA had Al-Qaeda number 7, or to be more accurate, you, accidentally in their sights.
Yeah. Just as I think as I heard, they were very close to ordering a drone strike at our little setup there in Pakistan, and as it's told to me later, some analyst or staffer spotted one of our guys on some of the satellite imagery wearing a Halmquist Family Ales t-shirt. So, thank God for high-resolution satellite imagery. Apparently, that made it back. And it made it back to Obama or Hillary or somebody in the Situation Room or whatever they do, and otherwise we'd have been taken out, blown to bits.
And they managed to call off the drone strike just in time.
Yeah. Believe it or not, after that, the former President Obama and I were able to kind of share a laugh and a couple bottles of AQ number 7 beer he was technically he was the only one laughing. I still kind of chill at the fact that even got that far.
And you had no idea at the time.
Oh no. We had just returned to Islamabad, probably 10 days, a few weeks later, and we weren't getting any news from the outside really, and the entire expat community were all abuzz about it.
So that's when you decided to take your operation totally offline.
You know, I guess that the services may still be like identifying us, but yeah, it's it pretty much marked the end of Family Ales as we knew it at the time. If the CIA knew me as Al Qaeda number 7, then screw it. Al Qaeda number 7 would be.
Hopefully without the drone strikes.
Yeah, no kidding. We took the varieties of our hops that we had cultivated there in Pakistan and a few other places, brought them back to the family farm. We got legal rights or some patents to it going, and really started selling them and collecting royalties. It's the hops royalty payments that financed the startup of the whole AQ number 7 collective, actually, and the whole pop-up operation.
So, Jens, your ambitions as a collective, they're large, huh?
If a desire to make the best beer, the best art, and the best music, and to make a collective mobile so that we can interact with our communities of, I'd say, like-minded people wherever we go, then yeah, I guess that is large.
The big break for AQ number 7 Collective arrived shortly after the 2016 U.S. election. I mean, there were a few of us insiders who knew about what you were doing, but then Berlin. Wow.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about Berlin is that it didn't even happen. Our popularity was at such fervor that it officially spawned off a fabricated event, and to this day, I have people coming up to me and telling me they were at our breakout moment there in Berlin, and it technically never even occurred.
It's kind of like the fact that 10 million baby boomers claim to have attended Woodstock in 1969, when in fact the actual number was probably more like 400,000.
Yeah, kind of. But, Woodstock actually did take place, and a lot of people did attend. The collective didn't even have a pop-up show in Berlin in November. No one attended. It never even occurred. It never occurred. And I can't, to this day, think of why people would say they were there.
So how did this convincing story ever come about? And why does it persist?
Well, I've been telling the truth for 2 years.
Sure you have.
It was a total and complete social media hoax. It was friends of AQ number 7, group inside, a little subgroup inside that thought it'd be clever to do that. And they essentially hacked into the community internationally, and have been really busy during the fall of 2016.
These friends of yours, these hackers, they'd been busy in the fall of 2016.
As I understand it, yeah.
Working on behalf of the Russians to interfere with the U.S. presidential election.
Let's just say they were busy. They had a lot of cash. They were looking for something fun to do right after the election. And they approached us about doing a project. See, Dave, the reality was that the hackers had just used social media to tap into many American kind of base instincts, mostly negative, to influence the outcome of the presidential election, in my view, and push it in favor of Donald Trump. Our theory was that we could use that same power, that same analytics to tap into the human instinct for creativity, music, and art.
And beer?
Oh, yeah, and beer too. It was funny, but beer ended up being the last of those that was interesting to us at the time, but yeah, it included beer. Just as they had rallied a community around Trump's message, we thought perhaps we could do the same around AQ number 7, specifically around the collectives message. Bear in mind, I'm a beer guy. I'm not a tech guy, so I had no real understanding of how that would all happen. But I thought we should give it a shot.
And it worked. The fake messaging around the Berlin pop-up went viral and put AQ number 7 Collective very much in demand. Tell us more about that.
Well, yeah, right. The initial messaging was all about this number 7 Collective pop-up in Berlin. There was fake messaging in real time as if it were an event really happening. To me, the amazing thing, actually to all of us, was that many people jumped onto the messaging in real time. There was definitely a crowdsourcing aspect to this, and we have been able to determine that much of the attention was also generated by what this team called bots, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it was a lot of technology involved, and there were plenty of real people tweeting and putting stuff on social media, Instagram, and what have you, and bloggers who jumped into the fray. There were real people too, but there was a lot of fake news in there.
And following the fake Berlin pop-up, you got a huge number of positive reviews.
Yeah, most of those actually were fake. Admittedly, that was part of the plan set up by the team who wanted to do this. But we actually had a lot of media outlets that were legit, and like the National Beer Journal, Rolling Stone. I think the New York Times reached out to say, please let us interview you and cover the next event. So it was equally astounding to me that they wanted advanced announcement for our upcoming events. So they wanted to be included.
So a fake event begat a series of real events.
Yeah, that was kind of the cool part of this whole thing is we'd already been doing real events. The Berlin fake notwithstanding. To very little attention. So they were really narrow. They were just really small community affairs, music and beer and art lovers. It's just that from the fall of 16 onward, everything we proposed started to get tons of pub, lots of attention.
And to the point now where you do zero promotion yourselves.
Yeah, except for a little bit by the AQ number 7 collective team and a few of our partners in the locality where we do the pop-ups. We spend more time trying to keep the events under wraps than anything else.
And so the rationale behind a business shunning all forms of public relations is what?
Basically that we get more attention by limiting access to what we're doing and basically maintaining an air of mystery. And for whatever reason, for us anyway, this model really works. It's kind of reminds me of speakeasies. They really prided themselves on being very hard to get to. So it works for us.
And every pop-up that AQ number 7 has done in 2018 has been a huge success.
Yeah. Part of the challenge here is we're really limited by these venues, and we have to keep them limited in size to maintain that air of secrecy, and we sell everything we can haul and put on hand, and we've got tons of waiting list for future product.
And your event you just did here in Indianapolis, it was a success?
Yeah, we actually love Indiana. I got some good friends there, and we just wrapped up a 72-hour pop-up in Indy. It was great.
Unless it was fake.
Yeah, well, sure, unless it was fake. That's the cool part. Except that I guess you were there, Dave, remember? We saw each other. Was that the highlight for you? I should say, what was the highlight for you?
It actually did occur. It wasn't fake.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, there are real things happening.
It was great. It was great, Jens. I'd say, the beer was great. The art was great. For me, it was probably Mixana's all-night dance party that was my favorite. So listen to the 2018 365 Sunsets Year in Set List, courtesy of Mixana. She's the superhero of the mixtape and musical director for AQ Number 7 Collective. And listeners, look for an AQ Number 7 Collective pop-up coming to a city near you in 2019.
Unless those are fake.
Unless it's fake. Jens, thanks for coming on the show and demystifying some of those myths, if you will.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure, Dave. Great to see you.
This has been 365 Sunsets with my guest, Jens Halmquist. Please tune in to the next episode of the show, where our guest will be Mixana, superhero of the mixtape. She will discuss her superhero powers, her role as musical impresario for AQ Number 7 Collective, and her guest curation of the 2018 365 Sunsets Year in Set List.